Welcome to this second pilot of the group coaching program that I'm building. My name is Zachary Cochran. I'm the founder and coach at Cochran Coaching LLC. And what you're about to experience is a small version or a microcosm of what the group experience will feel like. So instead of having the larger group, today I focused on just two individuals in what would be a simulated one-on-one breakout session. And from that experience, you'll get a sense of what it's like not only to be a part of the larger group, but also what's the kind of dialogue that might happen in the space that you would have as a participant to be able to engage with someone else and to verbally process what you're learning in these coaching sessions. And so, what you're about to experience are two individuals who were very gracious to let me record them, and they're going to share their thoughts at the end as to what they found valuable, what they learned, and hopefully, this gives you, again, a really good picture of what it is that you might be a part of if you were to join this group, and what also it would look like if you were to send someone from your organization to join this group. All right, so with that, enjoy this program. And I would encourage you to, as we go through the exercise that we're going to go through in this, please go ahead and participate along with them on that. You can treat this as your own personal development or professional development learning opportunity while listening to this recording. And in addition, if you're like me, you may wish to just put your headphones in and listen to this as opposed to watch it, or you may even dial up that speed to 1.25 or even up to 2.0, just so you can listen to it at a higher clip. So that's how I listen to this kind of content. I would encourage you use the YouTube controls, adjust that speed up to whatever you're comfortable with, and certainly feel free to listen to it instead of just watch it. There really aren't visuals on this one, so you're good to just listen to the conversation over the next several minutes. Okay, with that, enjoy this, and thank you for tuning in and listening to this recorded pilot. All right, well, welcome to today's pilot of the group coaching program that I'm running. My name is Zachary Cochran, a founder of Cochran Coaching LLC, and with me today are Matt Tour and Michael McCarr. Michael, did I pronounce your last name right?
Makar.
Makar, thank you. And so I'm happy that you are getting a chance to, both of you, to be a part of this sort of simulated pilot experience. In the first pilot that I ran, I was able to give folks a picture of what it looks like to have six people in a group and to run breakout sessions on that. Now, the breakout sessions were not recorded. And what I'm hoping to do here is to give people today a picture of essentially what does that breakout experience look like within the group coaching context. Ideally, people are going to get an experience of being coached by me, and that is going to be helpful. And there's going to be a value of being able to talk that out of whatever the topic is in a one-on-one or sometimes three-person breakout group. And so that's where we'll go today with this recording. And I'll end up stepping off camera for about 15 minutes to let you sort of actually have an authentic conversation in that breakout group around a topic that we'll decide on. By the way, with this group, my intent is to support young professionals, and that's the reason I started my company, Cochran Coaching LLC. And young professionals don't always have learning contexts where they can continue developing themselves as lifelong learners and as leaders. And so that's part of the purpose of this group is to help people understand how to be a leader of themselves in the context of their workplace. Of course, those skills are transferable and apply over to their personal lives as well. And the culture of the group that I'm trying to build is one that's open-minded, curious, attracts learners, people who maybe self-identify as leaders, where they're interested in working on leading themselves well, a supportive and a collaborative context. So with that, let's jump straight into what will be the two topics for today, or a choose your own adventure, pick a third if you prefer. Um, Option number A, or option A would be that you are ongoing learners as young professionals. And so, as a young professional, you have the opportunity to do things like reading books, watching videos, right? Finding ways to continue your learning journey. And yet, we don't always do that intentionally, and we don't do that maybe as thoroughly as we'd like to. And so, the topic of how do you become a better continuous learner is option A. Option B is let's talk about emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is a key skill for any professional. In fact, the research that Dr. Travis Bradbury has done shows that high emotional intelligence professionals out earn their low emotional intelligence peers by $29,000 per year. And that is making emotional intelligence $1 million skill over the course of a 40-year career. And so that's a very key one. The way we would run that is to help you identify where are you at in your emotional intelligence journey now? Where do you want to be? What's that gap look like? And then what are some actions or even a habit that you could put in place to be more emotionally intelligent out of this session? So with that, let me just ask you both to briefly introduce yourselves, just so that folks who are listening can have some context and so that you can get to know each other a little bit as we go into this. And then if you don't mind, let me know what your preference is in terms of topic, A, B, or a third topic that you might choose.
Great. My name's Michael. I am based in Seattle. Technically, I work for KeyBank as a consultant. My role is to essentially speak with about 8 to 10 people per day over video calls and review their student loan options and help them understand what options they have and essentially refer some services. There's some that we offer and there's some that our other partners offer. So it's a lot of, kind of walking people through options that they have available and on paper can figure out on their own, but there's often a high barrier to entry just to figuring out those plans. So here to help walk people through, make those referrals. And I think the second topic jumped out to me a little bit more.
Okay, thank you, Michael.
Hi, and I'm Matt Tor. I'm with Southway Builders. I'm a business development associate with them. So my role kind of has a couple different sides to it. So primarily, I'm out making introductions to the C-suite level developers, owners, architects, engineers, those types of design partners. In addition to that, we're looking at following up in our cadence of our CRM management, strategizing our business development approach, and what market segments we would really like to be targeting. So, with that, we do a lot of multifamily development along with commercial construction as well.
Excellent. And Matt, how are you feeling in terms of topic?
Yeah, number two was sticking out to me as well. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, great. Well, thank you both for being here and for sharing your background and experience. And this, again, is a simulated group coaching session as well as breakout. So I am excited to dive into you in on this topic with you. So as we get started, I'm going to ask you if you have a pen and paper, great, or you can pull up on your laptop here, just an open notepad. I'm going to lead you through a series of questions, and typically in a larger group of somewhere between 6 to 15 people. This part would be where you might go off camera, you might do your own processing of it, and then when we complete that sort of exercise around the topic that has the group's chosen, that's when I'd send you to breakouts. So this will be about 5 minutes of questions that I might be asking here to help you get to clarity, and then immediately move you to that breakout around the discussion on the topic.
Sounds good.
All right. So any other questions or concerns before we get started?
All set.
Great. Okay, great. So emotional intelligence is all about helping you to identify your emotions, um, be aware of them, and to effectively manage yourself. But that's basically half of the picture. While it starts internally, emotional intelligence also requires that you identify what emotions others are feeling and you're able to manage your relationship with them. And so, according to the framework that I teach, and I teach a 4-hour course on emotional intelligence, it starts with self awareness, moves to self management, but then you also need to have others' awareness and a relationship management with others. So, those four components of emotional intelligence could be assessed individually, but it all starts through that self awareness. If you're not self aware enough to know emotionally what's going on or what are you feeling, that's going to be challenging. So you haven't been through the training, but that's a quick basis on it. And the research has shown, again, that only 36% of people are actually able to identify what they're feeling at any given time. And so if you have any challenges identifying what you're feeling, that's totally normal. That's what most people experience. And yet that's an area for you to grow. So what I'd like you to do as step one of this, if you don't mind, is on a scale of 1 to 5, identify where you think you are today in terms of your skill in emotional intelligence. 1 would be, wow, I've never even thought about this. I've never heard about it. I'm probably terrible. Number 5 would be, I'm doing excellent. I've really invested a lot in this. I've probably read books about it. I'm happy with where I'm at. And I don't see a lot of room for growth because I'm already hitting my potential. So you don't need to put in the chat on this where you are, but go ahead and write down where you think you fall on that scale. All right. And as you've decided on your number, follow-up question to that would be, where do you want to be? It doesn't mean you necessarily, if you're not at a 5, that you need to be at a 5. Maybe you want to see positive progress. Maybe you're going from 3 to 4, or from 2 to 4, or 2 to 3. And so go ahead and define what that target for you would look like in terms of where you want to go next in your emotional intelligence growth. All right. And so with that target defined, that may be a gap. Hopefully you didn't say, oh, I'm a 4 and I'm going to want to go back down to a 1. No, but usually defining the gap requires something that will change. And so you know, think about what is it, what would be required for you to change to make that happen? This is more of an open-ended question, but what would you need to do to make that change happen, to go from your low number to your higher number? All right, and there's probably more to explore there, but you can do that in the breakout session. So a key question here too is, how important is it to you that you'll change that number? And you can use a 1 to 5 scale on this as well. 1 is, this really doesn't matter to me at all. 5, this is highly relevant, highly important for me. I should probably be spending serious attention on and time on this. All right, let's assume that it is high enough for you to spend some time on it. And as you both mentioned, you were interested in this topic. And so think about what actions, we're talking as specifically as you can get, what actions can you take to become more emotionally intelligent? See if you can brainstorm a list of 3 to 5 actions that you think if you did, it would help you grow your self-awareness, or more broadly, your emotional intelligence when interacting with others. All right. And out of those actions, if you were to pick one action that you could turn into a habit and use that to practice regularly to become more emotionally intelligent, which one would you identify as your primary target? And hopefully you've decided on which one that would be. And so, what has stopped you in the past from starting a new habit? You can think about barriers to that, or other challenges that you would anticipate. Okay, and if you think about how you can hold yourself to that goal or that plan, what is it that you could do to keep yourself accountable to the thing that you've identified that you'd like to do, to make it real, to make it actually happen? Go ahead and think through what you might need to do to create that structure of accountability for yourself to put this in place. Okay. And with that, that was sort of the exercise around this. And true group coaching includes exercises as we've just done. It would also include maybe more of a dialogue. I might be asking you to react with me in the chat, or in a smaller setting for people to kind of offer their thoughts. But that said, this is a good time where we're going to transition to the breakout room. Now, technically, this is going to be the breakout room. So with that, I'm just going to go off camera and off audio. It's still recording. You'll go for about 12 to 15 minutes. probably keep it more towards 12, just given the time frame that we have today, and give you a chance to talk through what you discussed or what you'd uncovered through that exercise with one another. So feel free to do a brief introduction to one another, ask any questions you might have personally, and then within the first couple of minutes, see if you can get into the topic and spend about 10 of those minutes on uncovering, what did you learn and sharing that, and hopefully coming away with some sort of what you'd like to share with the larger group. Okay. Any questions before we go to breakout?
Nope.
All right. Breakout starts now. Thank you. See you in about 12 minutes.
Hey, Michael, how you doing today?
Hey, pretty good. Nice to, yeah, good to meet you and talk a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. So, I guess give me a quick background on what you do, what's your role?
Yeah, so my title is loan consultant. Basically, I talk to 8 to 10 people a day and help them figure out, they send me their student loan information ahead of time. And I basically talk them through, here's what options you've got. A lot of it is profession dependent. If you work in healthcare, if you work for nonprofit, obviously wide range of people and financial situations that we help figure out. And kind of each call, you got 30 minutes to kind of uh, learn some info about them, do some data gathering, kind of walk them through what their options are, and then get into at the end of the day, it's pretty much a sales job of figuring out here's what we offer, here's what we'd like to work with you on, and kind of get them to whatever we're kind of pitching to them.
Very
Yeah,
good. Yeah, well then sounds like you have a lot of the need for that high emotional intelligence there. So that's why.
exactly. Yeah, it sounds like you have a lot of a wide range of interactions. Like you do a lot of internal, but also a lot of like
Yeah.
client meetings.
Yeah, and a lot of my stuff is really out those new introductions at like networking events, which
Mhm.
can be a lot of like just that like energy like consumption just from having to just be on. So I think like just knowing like having like better like skill sets in that regard for the emotional intelligence like will definitely help there. The environments at work are interesting because it's like I eventually I want to scale up to be more of like in a managerial role
Cool.
within there. So it's like, okay, how can I like, what are the steps I need to take today to be able to start getting myself in that position? So, but see, I did jot a couple notes down. Um, I think one thing before we kind of like kick it off is the biggest piece that like was pointed out to me was just like self-awareness, right? Like that's kind of really
Hmm.
the root of it all. And like if you just become the more self-aware and the more internal you're like focusing on you, like that outward rippling effect kind of has like
Yeah.
huge impact. So I'm curious to hear where you were on the scale. Like what do you think you clocked in at?
Yeah, I'm giving myself a 3 with the goal to be a 4. I think my limitations in emotional intelligence are a significant part of who I am, especially at work. I have um, a good example of that is I heard the phrasing about 10 years ago that when you're angry, you either run hot or run cold. And I tend to run cold when I'm angry, of like separate, like just very kind of brain driven.
Yeah.
And I think being a 5 of emotional intelligence would mean like sacrificing a big part of who I am at nature. Um, but I do think it's been kind of a lifelong progress, and it's something that I strive for. Is just in general, kind of asking questions of myself, being self-aware. So I wouldn't say that I'm, you know, remarkably talented at that, but it is something that I do and ask myself. Um, a example that I was thinking of a lot throughout filling this exercise was I went on a hike last week with some friends, and it was 3 of us. And I noticed at multiple points throughout, we're out there for several hours, and I noticed, like, boy, I just don't shut up. I've just got so much to say, and every question they've got, like, I've got some long-winded response, and just wondering, is that um, my partner often off a lot of times will like make eye contact, and she'll give me like a time's ticking. So that was it's a good call to action of thinking about how I interact with the world. Yeah, I'd love to hear where you think you stand and
Yeah,
some goals
yeah.
on that front.
Yeah, that's so I've had I think I've taken more of like the active like listening approach in a lot of ways. I spent a lot of time bartending years ago, so that was
Cool.
kind of like where a lot of like the empathy kind of came in and was able to connect with folks in that regard. And that comes like pretty natural to me. Um, and I think we're at like, I don't know, maybe kind of again turning more inward, just maybe be more empathetic with myself. It might be like how I can help grow in that regard. Um, but the yeah, and then I spent some time teaching as well. So and I was teaching
Mm.
like sciences for like the ninth grade biology, chemistry classes and whatnot. So having that varying, demographic of folks who I've interacted with over the years, it's been interesting. So I feel like pretty kind of like I wouldn't say, like fully skilled or like I got it down, but I feel like pretty, efficient in at least like in the empathetic side. I gave myself like a 3.5 on the scale.
Cool.
Um, like striving to be like that 4.0, I think just to, there's always more room for the improvement. I thought that was interesting of your approach though. You're like, striving to a 5 would kind of lose a little bit of me. I like that. I appreciate that. So, um, but I think that having that, like, again, the more self-awareness and like that self-regulation and really kind of sticking to some of these like my own plans of like, how does it feel when I'm out at these events? Like if I'm getting
Mhm.
burnt out from going to all these events, okay, then you got to regulate like your amount of time you go in with a mission and stay focused. And then once you do what you came to do, then you're out and then you're not having to overextend yourself in these later nights, early mornings and things like that. And then not to like put it like, um with any like malintent or anything like that, but like talking to some people that like don't end up producing like a
Right.
lead because like these rooms will be filled with people who are subcontractors or legal people. It's like I don't need to totally talk to you, but I like, it's nice to talk to you and I think there's still value there. So not being so like quick to shut the door on them because they could make a good introduction to somebody else that could be of value. Um, but like also not overextending my time and
Right.
with those types of conversations too. So
So it almost sounds like almost like the strategy of it is the challenge of like understanding how to, you know, interact graciously with someone. Like your time. It's tough with these like with a social yet professional event because your time is so valuable. But if there's like a social aspect to it, like you said, like you don't want to just look at people transactionally.
right,
So it sounds like it's more of like a strategic goal of like understanding how to be gracious, but also be like serve your own goals and needs.
right. Yeah, so in your side, you're a bit more fast paced. It feels like I have times I'll see people in the same room, event after event after event. So I can really like, warm up to them over time. But for you, you're looking to really make that initial connection and turn it around in what you said about like a 30-minute or so consultation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what like for your purpose and I guess getting them like over the line for the loan, like the incentive really like is it really more like you're checking the numbers, making sure that they like qualify, or do you have to have some sort of that personal connection to help like understand what plan might be the best for them?
Yeah, I try to find I try and get a little incisive about what goals, what are you trying to accomplish with this? A lot of people, one of the challenges I find is that a lot of people um, kind of set up calls with us because they truly don't know what they have available and what their goals are even. And so they just want someone to kind of talk things through. I struggle with that to connect in that case because then I just turn to, great, like we've only got 30 minutes. I don't have time to like become your friend. So I just want to kind of uh, I notice a lot of shields go up on my end when that happens. Of I'm just going to be really numbers driven, walk through the numbers. Does any of this sound good to you? And then people are much more likely to act on emotion if they have an attachment or if they have a strong feeling about options. Even when it comes to something as kind of calculable as money. So
Yeah.
um, Yeah, I'm curious. Do you have a strong sense of when you're like meeting with someone? Do you have a strong sense of like this is someone I need to like, you know, have have a stronger connection with, or is it do you just kind of let them figure that out?
Yeah, I kind of go in with like asking a lot of questions about them and their experience and where their expertise really lies. Because I think one thing I learned a long time ago is like the people really like to talk about themselves. So, and that just uncovers so many details and like connect dots and things like that I don't really have to pry too much when they just kind of are letting it out. I think that helps to grow that connection too, where they feel comfortable to be able to share, just different things about them and their experiences. But then making like a use of like, okay, the next time I see, this guy who, just had his, firstborn or whatever, like checking in, how's it going?
Yeah.
How's being a dad going? Making that personal connection is really important. But with the there's a tough uh hurdle that I reach when I have like a C-suite level individual who is a bit more tenured and senior in their career. And like they see somebody younger coming to the table and it's not that they're like, I don't want to have the time of day for you, but having a little bit more of that, like, I guess, initial respect. So being able to show them and like being able to
Yeah.
be level with them in terms of like, although I'm not tenured in my career, I'm knowledgeable and we have, expertise that is equivalent to, the work that
Do,
you've done. And,
do you approach that? Do you approach that as trying to prove yourself, or do you approach it with kind of giving deference and like, being extra respectful?
I want to say that it should come from like out of that respectful side and like, like I think it's like, oh, there's so much that I could learn from connecting with this person, but do they have the capacity to be able to lend mentorship
Sure.
or, provide more of that time of theirs. But there is some of them you're like, well, I want to get, sit in the seat next to this guy and like have that conversation with them and be able to build that connection with somebody who is a bit more influential and has some,
Mhm.
really good accolades on their background. So I think it means it like you could sit at that same table and they respect you. Um, but I'm also like, there's a
Yeah.
ton that I would be learning from that, which would be the real benefit to me. So it's a
Um,
little self-serving.
yeah, that makes sense. And Zach just sent us a notice. What's kind of rapid fire? What was your like habit that you wanted to integrate?
Yeah, so let's see. I wanted to build in like more of that genuine outreach and connection.
Hmm.
So instead of being some more direct, oh, let's get lunch and do these things and go to, we have these happy hours, whatever, like not making it so transactional in terms of like what projects you have, but really building and fostering genuine connections is what I'm
Right
going.
on. I went with the wording I settled on is voluntary silence. I definitely have a tendency to, if there's silence, I'll take it on. Um, and often that can mean someone else doesn't get a chance to talk or share more. And like you said, people want to talk about themselves, and giving them that chance, you never know what you're gonna learn.
Yeah. And then what was um the goal that you were gonna set?
My goal was going to be to like check in with myself, like after an interaction, whether it's in personal life or professionally, just figure out what did I learn about them as a person. I look at a lot of people's numbers, but figuring out who did I just talk to, kind
Hmm.
of just checking in with myself that. And like you said, that kind of self-awareness just flows outward into then starting to be more proactive about that, but
Yeah,
starting with the reactivity.
nice. Yeah, I said just having like setting the goal of more manageable connections. So like, maybe like 3 to 5 folks that I really want to start to foster and continue to like have more intentional relationships that I'm growing with.
Very
Uh,
nice.
so I think that could be a manageable number of hitting those three or so a month. So
Yeah. And
yeah.
naturally, like at a certain point, it gets hard to keep it that low, I would imagine.
Yeah, yeah, true. That's a good problem to have.
Exactly.
Yeah, awesome. So that was simulated as if I pulled you back when in the coaching community that I'm in, we call that the hook. So oftentimes I would find I still had more to say, it cut me off. And I think that's part of the value of having this as a once a week conversation that's ongoing with the other members in the group and with folks who are likewise learners. I've noticed we don't have contexts to be able to speak about these types of things very often with colleagues and certainly not consistently. And even if we find a good work community, we change jobs, suddenly we're back to square one. And so I'm hoping that this experience will create that opportunity for people to have community, connection, to be able to verbally process. So typically when I bring you back from a breakout like that, I'd ask you to share with a larger group, what is it that you discussed? What did you learn? What was valuable to you? And either people would type in the chat or would share verbally with that. But obviously, since this was a simulation, I heard that that was a great example of a breakout. Thank you so much for doing that. My kind of closing questions to you, one of them would be, what did you like about this experience? What kind of like jumped out at you as being enjoyable or valuable?
Yeah, I think for me the juxtaposition of, my one-on-one with Michael was really great because it allowed us to provide good insight back and forth. And that I guess genuinely a coincidence, that it panned out that way. But I think the value there is that you don't know who you're going to be able to connect with and who you can learn from. And while, our roles aren't quite necessarily similar, there's overlap in at least the way that we're communicating with individuals that we were able to help each other out with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
similarly, I felt the starting with the exercise, you kind of push in on your own mind. You're really thinking like, who am I and who am I trying to get to? And then having a one-on-one conversation really like um, just really naturally fosters like learning and open questions, that curiosity. I also wanted to like one of my takeaways, something I kind of want to try in my role is uh, I've had this, someone else has used this phrase, but this is a good reminder. Treat every job like you're a bartender, because you never know what you're going to hear or where you'll get to. But you learn a lot about people in that setting, I can imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. A good one-liner. And Matt, I don't know that I remembered you'd had that bartending experience, but that's
Teaching, no less.
yeah, that's right.
So.
I like that one, Michael. I gotta instill that in my own, ways because I forget sometimes. So, but
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So, kind of closing question, any other things that you either learned or that you'd want to share um, with each other as we wrap up?
What do you find are the like what are some of like the bullet points, like the biggest challenges you see to people in building emotional intelligence?
um, geez, that's a good question. I don't know. I think it's really just finding that common ground is kind of like is sometimes it seems like you kind of have to go a little bit more of a winding path at times to really understand who somebody else is and where their head is. Others are a little bit easier and more direct, which I guess it's just feeling out that side of
Yeah.
just varying people that you come across. And again, it just I think is biggest thing is that time investment, and if you can be more succinct and clear in that direction, then you can provide more value to yourself, your connections, and still respect in that time.
Yeah, my gut says that looking inward is just not something we ubiquitously really value or teach um, in at least the culture I came up in.
Yeah, I think turning in is definitely more valuable than, kind of orchestrating things from the outside or pointing fingers in another direction. Um, and that, like we had kind of mentioned it, just having more of that self-awareness
Mhm.
will create that ripple effect. And I don't know, stay in your lane, right? Isn't that the
Yeah, yeah.
old so
Yeah. Perfect. Well, guys, thanks so much for being here today and for helping me with this recording. I don't know if I don't believe you'd met before this, right?
No.
Mm.
So I'd like to encourage you, if you're open to it, just drop your LinkedIn profile in the chat so that you can stay connected regardless of what happens with the group. And um, that way you'll have made a meaningful connection today, and hopefully someone who can be a part of your support system as a fellow young professional going forward.
Yeah, great.
And with
Thank you, Zach, for putting this together.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, with that, I'm officially aiming to launch this group on July 11th. That's a Friday, following Independence Day. And the intent is to have a minimum of 8 core people to launch that with, and then kind of grow it from there. So the most people that I think could be subscribed to the group is about 40, because as you've seen today, there can be drop off. And so, with that said, again, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to record this and to uh, have that as an asset for folks who are looking into this program. And yeah, I hope to be in touch with you both later, and hope that you have a great weekend.
Yeah,
Likewise, great to meet you, Matt. Good to talk to you,
yeah,
Zach.
nice to meet you as well.
All
Take
right.
care.
Thank you. Take care. All right, so that was a great example of what it would look like to be a part of a breakout in this group coaching program. And of course, this is designed for young professionals. So in both cases, young professionals who did not have direct reports. There is a management group that I am building as well. And in that case, some of the breakouts will be more focused around, how do you manage the folks on your team effectively? And what does it look like to go through your own sort of self management and leadership journey to be able to manage others more effectively, or to even model those types of leadership behaviors that you'd like to see from your team. As this has been a great example of a small breakout, and we've had a better picture of the larger breakout, or the full group of a minimum of 6 people, you have hopefully now, if you've watched both of these videos, an experience of what it's like being in the group. And of course, that will change and evolve over time. I am believing that as the group grows, we'll continue to accommodate the number. We'll focus somewhat heavily on being able to create breakout spaces where people can dialogue with one another candidly. And I've found that to have that shared voice and to be able to speak with someone else and process through what you're learning is one of the best contexts for this. And so what you've seen today is a pretty good example of what I think a standard approach to the group coaching section of this program will include. Really, it is not just going to be pure group coaching. It's about 70% of the time. About, we'll call it 20% of the time is going to be some trainings that I'll incorporate. Things like, hey, I know we touched on emotional intelligence in our last group coaching session. We're going to do a deeper dive into what is emotional intelligence. There were some questions about that. Let's dive into the 4 components or domains of emotional intelligence, right? And so that combination of coaching and a little bit of training to support the coaching will create a really nice leadership development path for individuals in the program. And then the last 10%, I'd like to include for the group guest speakers. And this will allow them to come and share their thoughts and their wisdom. In some cases, they may also be coaches who are going to lead an exercise. In other cases, it may just be that they have something that they'd like to share, and it could be a training or just an open, ask me anything kind of dialogue that would be valuable for the folks in the group. So with that, thank you for taking the time to watch this recording. I hope that you have a great rest of your day. And if you have questions about what it would look like to be a part of the group, and specifically the launch of the group on July 11th, let me know. If we don't get a critical mass on July 11th, it will just push out a little bit further. But I am excited about having this group launch and creating the space for young professionals to continue to advance in their careers by developing themselves as leaders. So thank you so much, and I hope you have a great day.